Yeah, well, I want to get right into the, I think, martial arts question because,
Sure.
well, you and I go way back in terms of this game. Trained together 20 years,
Yeah.
20 years ago. We trained together.
Do
Unbelievable.
you believe that? Yeah, it is absolutely unbelievable.
And since then, have taken obviously very, very different paths. With you toward the military, and me doing a bit of travel and coaching elsewhere. But yeah, I'm curious. You're one of the few people, at least that I know, that has had extensive martial arts training. You're an expert in the field, trained in multiple disciplines, and you also have active duty. And I think that, for me, one of the most challenging things about martial arts is we often we have a very confined way of looking at it that's based on what we see in the movies or what certain people frame street fights as, and this kind of thing is martial arts and that kind of thing, or this would work in a fight and that wouldn't work in a fight. But I think very few of us have any practical experience with the depths of real combat. Where life and death is truly on the line. And I think one of my biggest questions, and one that I've had for a long time, is just how, and this is two-sided, but the first side of it is how has the martial arts kind of affected your view or your process of training and even your experience in combat? Has it informed your experience in any way? Has it given you any edge that you felt? And then the flip side of that is, what has that experience shown you about martial arts? So the inverse of that, where has it shown you that there might be gaps or assumptions or things that we take for granted that we shouldn't?
Yeah, so it's a question that I've wrestled with, even when I've been in the middle of wrestling with somebody, or training or in combat. To pointedly answer one of your questions, yes, being a martial artist, a lifelong martial artist, has given me an edge in every facet of my life, not just in a combat application, not just in a physical and mental resilience through application, through a tough combat situation, or even a mano-to-mano, face-to-face situation. But when I started, it's really been an evolution. So when I started in the military, and you and I were very well trained, and we were very well conditioned, and we trained ourselves. For spring breaks and every day, and we trained ourselves. And so I came in with the assumption that every martial artist comes in with is, I already have this skill set. I know this skill set and I'm good at it. What I found was, yes, that's true, but the application in a situation that doesn't have a referee or a simulation that mimics the high stress and high stakes, the high risk of a situation, I did not have that at all. And so while physically I could adapt, and while it gave me very quick decision-making skills in the moment, it gave me the ability to, and it still does give me the ability to riff or improvise, because I have so many tools. We've trained so many tools. What it didn't give me the understanding of is just the raw nature of combat, the raw nature of combat skills, combat sports. That visceral violence is not there. And I think in the martial arts, we gloss over that violence by saying, we give it like a Zen Buddhist, like, okay, no, you just need a higher mind, or no mind, or you need to continue to practice, one kick 1,000 times, that old Bruce Lee quote, which is all true, but the violence, the sheer animalistic human violence is not there. That aspect isn't there. And so while, yes, it did give me an edge, and I continue to use it. I continue to use that mental, emotional resilience. I continue to use the training methodologies to meet my needs where I am at the time. But when the gap is the violence,
Yeah.
you have to be constantly ready to overcome violence with more violence, and you have to. And in my perspective, you don't overcome that with a multitude of fighting philosophies and techniques. You overcome that with very simple and aggressive and pointed movements that are low risk and high reward.
Yeah, that's a really that's an excellent kind of framing and synopsis of that, I think, and where I hope you'd go with that. Yeah. So, what would you communicate to somebody that thought they knew? that guy that's got the black belt. Maybe he's competed a little bit. Maybe been in a few scuffles, but. And maybe you just answered it, but I would, I'd like to see if there's any more there to kind of dig out. But this idea that there are, maybe a handful or a basket of reliable tools, and then a lot of it's this need to essentially manage yourself under conditions that are truly high stakes, right? But how would that translate to somebody that doesn't have your background, or does it? Is it something that we can't understand without that experience, or is it something that might be relatable in some way?
So I guess the answer again is twofold. Number one, if you don't have that, if you have a martial arts background, or if somebody that black belt, and the definition of black belt for me has changed so drastically over the years. But let's just call somebody who has had 6 to 20 years of pure traditional martial arts experience. I would even go so far as to say, they trained MMA, but they've never stepped into something more high risk, like a smoker, or you understand what I'm saying? It's that violence there that you do need that. You can simulate it for sure. Combat is very boring for 99% of the time, and 1% it's balls to the walls. And unfortunately, in that 1%, that's where we lose most people catastrophically, outside of training accidents and things of that sort. So, there's very few people that have actually seen combat, even though they've been in a combat zone. But they understand, they've been in simulations where they have had to apply a level of violence and had to defend from a level of violence that they've never dealt with before. One of the things about the Modern Army Combatives program, MACP, in level 1 it's a drill called Achieving the Clinch. And when you're testing for your level 1 certification, you have to achieve the clinch, and you're the only one in that ring that is not wearing boxing gloves. You're the only one in that ring that's not allowed to throw a punch. You just have to achieve the clinch. And the bottom line is, you just have to learn how to get punched in the face. And it sounds horrible. It sounds completely counterintuitive to somebody who is teaching little ninjas or 14-year-olds or XMA, that sort of thing. But you just have to learn to get punched in the face and learn how resilient you really are, and what that does to you internally. So that's one. Yes, you can simulate it. The other part is, and we've seen this, and I'm going to bring up this shooting in just up the road here in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Those were 2 officers that have been in a violent altercation, and they are horrible fighters. They have no ability to apply any combat applications of any of their arrest control or defensive tactics techniques. And they had one person who is a fairly small statured individual be able to fight off 2 armed officers that are supposedly trained and easily move around. You know, unfortunately, I won't talk about the ending of it, but that's another. You can be trained, or you can have that violence behind you, and you've been in those altercations. But if you don't have the skills, you're gonna fail, and the consequences are obviously catastrophic. Same thing in the military. Same thing. I can teach from individual skills to collective skills. I can teach battle drills and immediate action drills, and I can teach hand-to-hand combat. And those skills have to be there and be proficient and simulated, so that there is a level of trust in yourself, trust in your equipment, trust in, if you're doing collective training, trust in your teammates, trust in, you know, the environment that's around you. And if you don't have that trust, you're gonna lose. Whether you have the skills and you don't have the simulated violence or real world violence, or whether you have the real world and simulated violence, but your skills are just not there, you're gonna lose that. But